let's talk about the government shutdown. I hope everyone is doing okay this afternoon. I have a slate of shows for today. I'm hoping this works. I'm using my cell phone as an internet provider because my other internet is down for a few hours. But let's do the news. So, the government is still shut down. This is, if I'm not mistaken, day 18 or day 19, where the government is shuttered. The doors of the government are closed, at least for the I think it's like 80% of the workers or some insane number. This is affecting hundreds of thousands of human beings. If I'm not mistaken, 800,000 people are being adversely affected by this, many of which don't know if they're getting a paycheck. Now, the majority of the country don't have $500 in a bank in case there is an emergency. So you can imagine something like this where people are on a hamster wheel and living paycheck to paycheck. This is devastating. My mom lived paycheck to paycheck, and she couldn't imagine going without a week or 2 weeks without a check. And then the reason is even more ridiculous because the president wants to build a wall that the majority of the country is not on board for him building. The president is essentially having a temper tantrum in the office and is using the presidential powers to hold the world, or you can say this country, hostage. This is the reality of it, and I'm going to present this almost as if presenting a case. Donald Trump is making the argument that there are rapists and drug dealers and terrorists that are coming across the border because, after all, it's Mexico, and they allow rapists and terrorists and drug dealers to come across the border. Donald Trump, pursuant to this, says we're going to build a wall. And he ran from pillar to post all across the country telling America, we're going to build that wall, we're going to build that wall, we're going to build that wall between the United States and Mexico because immigration is such a damaging issue to this country. And it's such a problem that these people, these foreigners, are coming in from other parts of the country. And there is a red meat base of the Republican Party that loves this talking, gets them out of bed in the morning. Yes, we're going to build a wall. Yes, we're going to keep those darkies out of the country. That's what we're going to do. And Donald Trump made this one of the main pillars of his campaign. We're going to build that wall. We're going to build that wall. We're going to build that wall. And Mexico is going to pay for it. Mexico is going to pay for the building of that wall because somehow he's a deal maker and he's going to make that deal come into place. Mexico told them early on, we're not building that fucking wall. And Mexico was clear about that. And it was bogus when he came out of his mouth. He was saying it because he thought that it was just awesome for his red meat group. Now the politics of it kicks into play. Donald Trump has to fund the government and he has to build that wall. And he has no political incentive from the standpoint of the Democratic Party to help him build that wall. The Democratic Party, that's usually essentially wet spaghetti on stuff like this, has stood firm. Now, the reason that they've been able to stand firm is because the public doesn't want to build the wall. And even if the public is maybe lukewarm about it and want these guys to compromise, they look at it roundly as Donald Trump's fault. I mean, understand, this was taking place before the new Democratic House came into office, where the Republican Party, who had the House, the Senate, the Supreme Court, and the presidency, could not fund the government of the United States. And what it looks like is the president is throwing a temper tantrum in order to get his wall built. A wall, again, that the public doesn't want and that I would argue is completely unnecessary and is being done so purely for a campaign promise. Take a look at this. Just want to make a point here. Going back to 2006, this is the number of people that were turned away at the border. If you notice, that number is precipitously dropping. And we're at one of the low points. Meaning, the number of people who are crossing the border illegally has dropped precipitously, going all the way back to 2006. Donald Trump is creating a crisis where a crisis doesn't exist. Let's keep going. Right here, here's another one. Illegal border crossings. Look at this. 2000, all the way down. Look at that trend line. We're at one of the low points with regards to illegal border crossings. Again, Donald Trump is creating a crisis where it doesn't exist in order to use it as political capital to try to galvanize his base. For the election that's coming up in 2020 because he wants to fulfill a campaign promise. But B, he doesn't want to look like an asshole. From the standpoint, meaning from a political standpoint, his base loves this. And from a political standpoint, you may have some independents who may fall in line with this kind of thinking, even though the reality of it is that illegal immigration has declined precipitously, significantly. When Donald Trump is making this argument about rapists and drug dealers and terrorists and all this other stuff, that may be true in other countries. It is not true in the United States. He's using his base. Now, the wild part about it is, simultaneously though, there's an aspect of me that's shocked by this, but shocked in a way of odd admiration, not at why he's doing it, but at the fact that he's doing it in the first place. Republican Party need to understand the precedent this sets. What if a president, let's say an independent, said, I am not passing this bill as long as we don't do something about this idea that corporations are people too. Unless that is struck down and we have public funding of elections, I am not passing this bill. The government stays shut down. Hell, for shits and giggles, let's add Medicare for all in that too. Can you imagine something like that taking place? I can't imagine something like that taking place either, because there's nobody who's on the left who's strong enough to make that case or make that argument and to stay in the withering criticism that they're going to take for the government being shut down. In this case, Donald Trump says, fuck all. Now, I suspect that his ability to withstand criticism has more to do with him just not caring and looking at this purely from the political standpoint of, I don't want to look like an asshole if I lose this political pissing match. Newsflash, you will lose this political pissing match. Regardless of what the public thinks, even if the public may be on your side with this issue, they're not going to be on side with you shutting the government down. And you have a lot of people who work for that government, who voted for you, who are being adversely affected by this. And I can guarantee you, regardless of what they think of you, regardless of what they think about that wall, if they're not getting a paycheck, they're going to be against it. Take a look at this. This is the human toll of this. The politics of it are somewhat overt. Donald Trump has a base. Donald Trump has told that base he's going to build a wall. This is in the context of a president that's gone after healthcare, where tens of millions of people would have lost their healthcare, that has given massive tax cuts while simultaneously freezing the wages of federal workers, and now instituted policy where these guys are not getting paid, and there is no day in sight where this is going to be resolved. This is rather amazing. He's attacked workers along the line, including people that were his ardent supporters. Take a look at this. I actually watched this yesterday, and so I'm glad I could find it. It's a situation like this get exacerbated if a regular paycheck doesn't arrive due to the lapse in government funding and the inability of Congress and White House to come to an agreement over funding the border wall. I need to get paid to support my son, to pay my bills, to finish my house, Kravitvari said, worried about the regular expenses like gas and daycare for his 5-year-old. It's been a struggle not knowing where the money is going to come from even before the shutdown. That was my rainy day fund, and it rained. The woman I talked to yesterday, one of my nurses, she's not into politics, and she said, I thought he was supposed to be for the people. I can't believe that he's doing this. Now, at this point, he's talking about Trump. She has no political alignment with anybody, but from her standpoint, her looking at this, she looked at this as, I have a mother that I need to take care of. And in needing to take care of my mom, I don't know what I would do if I didn't get that next paycheck. Gas station, another guy, same thing, similar thing. This, asshole is all of this money, and now he's making sure that all these people are getting paid. He is losing the politics of this, because he should lose the politics of this. There is a small segment of the population that may want him to build that wall, and that small segment of the population may be Trump supporters. But the overarching regular society, it should give him pause that a Democratic Party that is squeamish about stuff like this has been able to stand strong and be inflexible on this point. There is no Democrat in this country that's on board for you building this wall. There's a large share of independents that are not on board for you building this wall. And even a list of Republicans who may, under normal circumstances, be okay with you pulling some grandstanding like this. If they are not getting a paycheck, if they have family or friends that are not getting a paycheck, they are not going to be on board for you shutting the government down for this. Just saying. Take a look at the pain that this is causing. Crowder is part of the roughly 80% of federal workforce based outside of Washington, D.C. that are considered essential, still going to work every day during the shutdown, but unsure whether the next paycheck could arrive. An estimated 800,000 federal workers don't know when they'll see the next paycheck. Around 420,000 of them are still on the job. Around 380,000 are furloughed. Federal parks have been vandalized. TSA workers have started calling out, and many of the TSA workers have even stopped showing up to work. Now, it is true that when they test TSA workers, I think it was like a fail rate of 97%. But the catch with TSA workers is just the presence that they're there creates somewhat of a disincentive for people to behave a particular way. It's not so much that they're going to catch it, it's just the potential that they could catch it that creates the deterrence, if that makes sense. The idea that many of them are finding additional work and everything else. Here's the thing. They should bring it to a halt. If you're not getting paid, stop working. And what I mean by that is, if there's going to be pain, let there be pain. Not this thing where it pretends as if the government is still moving along. If the government is going to be shut down, let the government be shut down. I understand that it's painful, but it's painful already when you don't know when you're going to get your next paycheck come from. The fact of the matter is, the heighten the contradictions in this, the more pain that's affected on the nation itself, not just on the individuals who are being affected by this, the worse it affects Trump. Meaning, if you bring the airports to a halt, if you bring other services to an absolute halt, then it puts more pressure on Donald Trump in order to resolve this particular issue with this border wall. Going to work is probably not the best option. Not working, if you're not being paid, is probably a better option. Just saying. I understand the pressure, and I understand this idea of I'm doing this for the national thing and all this other stuff. Nonsense. The President of the United States is having a pissing match where he wants a border wall that is unnecessary. I showed you the charts with the immigration going down. This is something that Donald Trump himself is conjuring out of thin air in order for political reasons. He said he was going to build a wall, so now he's trying to build a wall and he's trying to extract whatever he needs to, country be damned, in order to do so. Like I said, there's something I admire about it, not necessarily in the reason he's doing it, but the idea that he has the balls to do it. And I'm wishing that other candidates, let's say, were more ballsy. Again, not why he's doing it. Why he's doing it is utter nonsense. Here's another one. One of the colleagues, a fellow air traffic control specialist, Bill Kirby, the local representative for the National Air Traffic Controllers Association, is the sole provider for his young family and also include his wife and their baby, Ella. It's frustrating, he said. The ball keeps spinning. This stuff doesn't stop. You just got to keep on paying your bills, pay off Christmas gifts, toys and stuff, and do everything else you got to do, not knowing when the next paycheck is going to come is worrisome. How would you relate if your next paycheck wasn't going to come in, but they still expected you to go to work and do the job? Let's see. So this guy, I thought, fuck him, but this is kind of what I mean. Unlike essential federal employees who are guaranteed to receive back pay when the government is funded again, the Jenkins couple will rely on action from Congress to provide back pay to furloughed workers like himself. Meaning, they don't know if they're going to get back pay. The couple indicated that they plan to begin filling out paperwork to apply for unemployment benefits. If this did not impact my household directly, I'd tell them stand tall because something needs to be done. You asshole. If this didn't affect you directly, meaning if I was separate and distinct from this, I'll tell Donald Trump, keep going. Fuck the other 800,000 federal workers that aren't getting paid. Stand strong on this. What an asshole. I hope you don't get paid when the money comes back on or when they cut the government back on. That's such a dickish thing to say. If it didn't directly affect me, if I wasn't one of the 800,000, I'd be okay with Donald Trump doing this. I appreciate your honesty, but what an asshole. Willard Jenkins said, one of the president and a barrier at the border, but because it does, it impacts my wife and me. If this continues, we wouldn't have a paycheck. I hope there's some kind of agreement, some kind of settlement because it directly is impacting me. But I definitely understand where Donald Trump is coming from. Do you now? Do you now? Do you? People's lives are at stake, he added, offering a personal message for the president and leaders of Congress. Get rid of the politics. Think of the people who voted you in. You have a lot of people across this country that put you in office, so think of them before yourself. So you want them to think of other people other than yourself. But in this very particular situation, you own up to the fact that if this didn't affect me, I'd tell Donald Trump, keep going. Are you kidding me? Oh, you other people need to get your shit in order. But yeah, if it didn't affect me, keep it moving. That's an amazing statement. So Donald Trump comes out and says he's going to declare potentially a national emergency. Now, Donald Trump can legally declare a national emergency, but it's unclear on what powers that would accrue to him for this. And again, some of the stuff that he's been saying has been extraordinarily patronizing to the people who are not getting a paycheck. I mean, I find that to be amazing that they're so cavalier with the fact that people are not getting a paycheck. So here's a fact check of some of the stuff that Trump has said, just in the short term. Building a wall will prevent drugs from flowing into the country. The fact, it's unlikely that a wall will stop illegal drugs from coming into the country. Essentially, that's false. Federal workers want the wall, not according to public surveys. That's also false. American people in general don't want the wall. You have a group of supporters who tend to trend a particular way from the standpoint of the way they view other racial identities. But ultimately, most of the public don't want him shutting down the government for this wall. Much of the wall has already been built. This is false. Former president told Trump they should have built the wall. Spokesperson for the 4 living ex-presidents have denied this claim in the press. Thousands of suspected terrorists have been apprehended at the border. This is false. This is false. This is a lie. U.S. Customs and Border Protections encountered only 6 immigrants at the port of entry in the United States-Mexico border the first half of the fiscal 2018, whose names were on the federal government list of known suspected terrorists, according to Customs and Border Protection. He just lies. I say he lies as easily as breathing. Mexico is paying for the wall with a new trade deal. Trade experts have told fact checkers that this is false. Also, previous administrations separated families at the border too. Ish. That's an ish. Obama kind of did it, not to the degree that Trump was doing it. Trump can declare a national emergency in order to get wall money. It is true that the president has the authority to declare that the country is in a state of national emergency, generally, but when it comes to whether the money is coming for the wall, it's more complicated, and any move is likely to be met by a court challenge. I mean, Trump can do this, but the legality of this becomes somewhat sketchy. The fact of the matter is, presidents can do whatever presidents want, and those things can be challenged in court, but that's challenged in court after the president has done what the president was talking about doing. Which is why I always thought Obama should have put Garland on Garrett on the Supreme Court, Merrick Garland on the Supreme Court. Make them drag him off that court bench, not wait for this idea of Hillary getting elected. It's nonsense. You take your wins when you take your wins. Illegal immigration costs America hundreds of billions of dollars. Not true according to immigration. In fact, immigration in this country is a benefit to our economy, not a minus. And it depends. Yeah, it depends. And the left is bad on this because the left never takes people's arguments into account when we're talking about immigration. There is something to be said about making sure that the people at the bottom of the income distribution ladder are not adversely affected by the swell of people that are coming into the country. Fact of the matter is, if you have a situation where people's needs aren't being met, but you're allowing other people to come into the country, you're creating a situation that is ripe for conflict. You got to make sure that people's needs are met and that they're not at the bottom of the income ladder. They can be a hell of a lot more, you can say, lefty in their ideals if they're not fighting for every scrap. The left needs to pay attention to this, and this kind of profits over human beings makes this worse. It exacerbates it. Exiting border wall sections cause illegal traffic to decline. This claim needs more context, and again, no new sections of the border wall have been built. Migrants are bringing diseases into the country. There is no evidence of this, meaning this is also false. ICE is hunting down dangerous people and M13 gang members. Partially true, but ICE has also been throwing cancer patients in the hospital. They hit somebody with their car and put the person in the hospital. There's been some nasty cases of what ICE has been doing. Fake news ignores crimes committed by immigrants. I don't think that's true at all. Catch and release lets immigrants stay in the United States indefinitely. This is misleading since there is no law or hard and fast policy called catch and release that gives undocumented immigrants carte blanche to remain in the United States. Let's call it false. Trump has been lying 1,000 times a minute in order to try to cover himself against the border wall thing. I'm sorry, it's not working. There is a massive human toll that is being extracted because of Donald Trump wants to get a border wall that, again, him and his his supporters are the only ones that want. So the human toll to this is massive, and there will be a penalty for this. I guarantee you, there will be a penalty for this. Mind over monkey. Search International Tribunal for Natural Justice channel on YouTube. Hour and hours of testimony everyone needs to see. Search the International Tribunal for Natural Justice channel on YouTube. Hour and hours of testimony everyone needs to see. I check it out. International Tribunal. I've never heard of that one. Yeah, this is at some point I would imagine it would be kind of like the Obama thing, where people wake up and realize that the guy's not a lefty, and that all of this hope and change, or hope and belief that in the second term Obama was going to rip the chains off and his muscles was going to be exposed and bulging in the sun, and he's going to start pushing all this lefty policy. Nonsense. You had essentially a moderate Republican that was elected on rhetoric that you could essentially pin anything onto, and he governed like a moderate Republican. Now, it took lefties a little bit to wake up from that, but I would point to you that it's the same thing with Trump. People elected Trump because they thought he was something fundamentally different. Trump gets in office and enacts one neocon policy after the next, with one exception, with the standpoint of Syria. He seemed to actually want to pull forces out of Syria. That seems to be changing now, but at the time he seems earnest about wanting to do it. But for the most part, it's just Republican policy. It's Republican policy. Alright, this video has gone way, way long. Uh-oh. I have racial conversation here. Let's see. I see it's something that Trudy is saying. Most blacks want the wall. Most blacks don't want the wall. I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no idea what you're talking about. I have no clue what you're talking about. Seeing as all of my family is black, and most of the people that I associate with on a daily basis is black, none of them have wanted the wall. How on earth do you get a situation where 90-something% of people vote Democrat, and you get 90-something% of people vote Democrat, but you're making the argument of blacks vote Democrat, but you're saying that the majority of blacks want the wall? It doesn't follow. Democrats in general don't want that wall. They hate his guts. Not only do they think he's racist, they think, he's a closeted homophobe and all this other stuff. They don't want him to prosper. And fact of the matter is, I don't know any Democrats that want him to build that wall. Even Democrats that aren't necessarily in line with the party dogma, they still don't want him to build that wall. Like, I have no idea who you're talking about. None. Most lower class individuals want employees not able to hire migrants for a lower wage. Pat Hacker. Now that part's true. That part might be true. But that part is true because you end up with a situation, like I said, where you bring people into the country, but you have a lower class into the country where the lower class feels like it's in competition with the immigrants that you're bringing into the country. Meaning the jobs that they're doing are unskilled labor, and so they feel like they're competing with the immigrants who are coming in for the unskilled labor. I agree with you on that. And that's somewhat of a blind spot on the left, where it doesn't seem to take that in consideration when they bring people in. Meaning, if you're bringing people into the country, you have to have the capacity to integrate those people into the society. And if you have them in competition with part of the lower class or part of a class that is unskilled labor, you're going to get conflict. Like, this conflict, though, is true in all countries. If you don't take care of the people in your society where they are not fighting at the bottom rung of the society, you're going to get conflict. Arrest employers, illegal immigration will stop. Wages will rise, prices will rise, capitalism for workers. I get your point, Trudy. They tend to arrest the immigrant, not necessarily the employer who's hiring the immigrant, meaning the person who's in Texas who says, I'm going to hire the immigrant. That guy gets off, but they do get the immigrant out. Look, it is the employer that decides to hire. It is the employer that decides to set the wages. Every incentive in the world is set up for that immigrant to come across into the United States, especially if they don't necessarily have access to certain things in their own place, meaning the incentives are for them to come here. The incentive is also from the capitalistic system to hire him because A, that person is more insecure, and B, you can pay that person less. Now, the incentives in this case work towards creating the illegal immigration and perpetuating the illegal immigration. The idea of punishing the immigrant for doing something that's, in every other case incentivized. Yeah, Trudy, I agree with you. This is more of an issue with the employer, not necessarily the immigrant themselves. You punish the employer, not the immigrant. At least in my head. I agree with you, Trudy. Uncomfortable quandary, yes. Illegal immigrants contribute to the economy, but only because they're exploited for our benefit. Krillin, yes. Yes. Both are true. Like, this is not a situation where it's either or. Like most things in our reality, it's a little bit of both. It's like, yes, they contribute to the economy, but yes, are they also ruthlessly exploited? Yes, they are. And when they're ruthlessly exploited, if there are people who are in the country that could have done that job and could have done that job for a higher wage, does that decrease the wage? Yes, it does. Simultaneously, though, it is the employer that pays that wage. It's an employer that hires that immigrant. I'm just making the point that the incentives here, from the standpoint of the employer, it's always attacking the immigrant, the low man at the totem pole. But it's not the immigrant that pays the wage, nor is it the immigrants that hires themselves. I guess that's my point. Like, I understand, wow, this is the most worthless discussion in a while. Get ready, you're guaranteeing Trump's reelection. Bob, I disagree with you on this. I mean, come on, are you serious? He's literally holding the country hostage in order to build a wall. I don't care if Trump builds the wall, if I'm being honest with you. It's a wall. It's not even a wall. It's like a fence. I don't care if he does that. By the same token, the Democrats have no incentive on giving him that. There is nobody who's in the Democratic Party that wants him to build that wall. They're not on board for it. So from their standpoint, for all the politics of it, is for them to say, we'll give you the money to fund the government. We're not building that fucking wall. You said Mexico was going to pay for it. That makes all the sense in the world for them politically. Now, from the standpoint of Trump has made a political promise. And like he said in one of the other meetings where he says, I don't want to look like an asshole if I lose this. But at this point, it is a big political gamble that he's taken in an overt way of saying, I'm going to build a wall and I'm going to keep the government shut down until I build that wall. That's an amazing precedent to set. Now, you think that this conversation is worthless. I don't think so. He will get punished for this, Bob. He will get punished. I hope Jamal's dog, Bo, takes a big dump in the bedroom during the stream. What? I can't believe you guys are for this. 95% of the federal employees vote Democrat. Who cares if your people starve? Well, I don't know if 95% of federal employees vote Democrat. I don't know if that's true. And even if it is true, so what? What does that have to do with the price of tea in China? I sort of respect Trump for trying to fulfill his campaign promise. Pat, that's kind of what I mean by this. Like, there's a certain level of, there's an odd sense of admiration of, holy shit, I can't believe he's going to the mat for this. By the same token, what does it mean that he's going to the mat for this? You have, hundreds of thousands of people who are not getting a paycheck. I just find it to be amazing. Can we call up to argue with you? Oh, God. All right. You guys want to call up to argue with me? Fair enough. Do you guys have the number? I don't have the number on hand. Hold on. Let me see if I can find the number. You guys want to call and argue with me on the wall. All right. I'll take that challenge. I give you 5 minutes each to make your case. I tend to let these go on too long. Go for it. Make your argument. No, Jay, I already know that my viewers are Trump supporters, or some of them are. But that doesn't necessarily bother me. There are going to be certain things that I agree with them on, certain things that I disagree with them on. Same thing with you. I can't believe you want to argue. I don't want to argue about this disgusting wall, but if they want to try to make their case to me on why Trump needs to build this wall, I give them 5 minutes. I give him 5 minutes. Let him, you want a shot at the title? Go for it. Explain to me why Donald Trump needs to build this wall in lieu of 800,000 people. In lieu of 800,000 people not. Wall stops rate. The wall doesn't stop rate, Skip. The wall doesn't stop rate. Please, just 5. Just 5. The point is that you attract... That's fine. Jay, if a Trump supporter looks at my channel, and I'm talking about all this lefty shit like Medicare for all and everything else, and they stay, then fair enough, they stay. I have no expectation of agreeing with everybody, and there may be some things that I say that they cling on to. I'm okay with that. You act like that's a negative. That's not a negative. It just means you have a wider range. I'm not on board for this shutdown. Yeah, neither am I. Neither am I. All right, I gave a chance to call in. I got to be honest. This seems indefensible to me. This seems indefensible to me. Is your phone on? Yeah, phone is on. Phone is on.
Jamarl Thomas.
And keep in mind, it's not even a wall. It's a fence. Like the people in the military even said, it's a fence. Even said it's a fence. Right here, right here. Oh God, Jamal is just doing Bernie's bidding and bashing Trump for 2020. No, Martin. When I give you a political position, it's an earnest position. Like, if you've noticed, when I agree with something that Sanders done, I just say I disagree with it. If I agree with it, I say I agree with it. It's not That's why we call it defense.
Defense.
Yeah, like the Berlin Wall, line it with shooters and fuck. Yeah, Trudy, this just seems utterly absurd to me. It seems utterly absurd. How is the wall supposed to stop tunnel traffic? Nobody's going to call in now. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine. I gave him that chance. Call and tell him why Daddy Trump will build a big wall so you're scared of brown people. Trump supporters are dumb and weak. Oh, man, he had it weak. As long as my tax dollars pay for Israel's wall while our borders remain wide open. But the borders are not wide open. I showed you this. He's playing you for suckers. Look at this. How is this the border remaining wide open? Every year it has gone down. The trend line has gone down. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Here's another one for you. I mean, come on. Come on. You gotta be honest. I know you guys hate when I say that, but be honest, be honest. He is grandstanding on this item for his supporters. This is not a real issue. This is an issue that he's making up. And by the way, here's another thing. It just, in private, Trump admitted that he doesn't want to look like an asshole because he's staked such political capital on us. Where is it? Where is it? Also, calling a national emergency, it is unclear if this is even legal. I mean, granted, he can do whatever he wants, but the legality of this. I'm trying to find the thing. I put all the links at the bottom so you could see it for yourself, including some of the op-eds by lawyers saying that they don't know if the president have the authority to do this. The thing of the matter is, whether he has the authority to do it or not is kind of besides the point. He's going to make the argument for it. Sometimes the argument is all you need. But the article's below. I'm not going to keep this one going.
Build the wall.
Honestly, most people don't really give a damn about the wall. No, they don't. They don't. They don't. Playing politics with people's lives. Yes, truly. That's exactly what's taking place. Most people don't give a damn about the wall. They just want to go on with their lives. Yes, simple fact. But the issue is extremely politicized. Same here in Sweden and Hungary. Yes, that is true. But you guys, the West, let's say Europe, signed on with the United States when the United States broke Iraq in two. There were many other countries that didn't agree with it. I think Germany was one of them, or France was one of them. But this country, in coordination with the UK and in coordination with a slew of other minor Western powers, broke Iraq in half. Not just in half, smashed into 1,000 pieces. With Bush chest thumping, calling it war, what is it, the shock and all, whatever they were calling it at the time. This sent people fleeing into other countries. Now, Obama followed this up with destroying Libya and assisting terrorists in separating Syria to create chaos in that particular region of the world. This includes Israel essentially working with terrorists in that region of the world to create a buffer zone between themselves and Syria within Golan Heights. And this includes countries like Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Iran, all of these countries, Russia, involved in this one small area of the globe. As the war in Syria raged on, many of the people who were in Syria, logically, fled the war zone because, it's a war zone. And many of those people fled to Europe. Now, Europe ends up taking an influx of migrants based on the behavior and the foreign policy that the United States took on. Meaning, despite it being our foreign policy, you guys essentially were either on board for it or at the very least stood blissfully by, believing that the foreign policy that we took on wasn't going to adversely affect you. You were wrong. Those migrants went streaming into your countries, and your countries had a problem. Okay, we're lefty nations. What are we going to do? What is our responsibility from the human standpoint in taking people in for the war zone? And so you did the right thing. You started taking people in for the war zones. And believing in almost this kind of blissfully naive terms that this was somehow going to just magically work itself out. You had people who were traumatized leaving war zones. You had other people who had drastically different cultures. And you're trying to have those cultures to some degree integrate. Meaning the societies have a certain amount of people that it can integrate within a certain period of time. I guess it's like water going through a sieve. There's a certain speed at which those people can be added into the country. Now, my argument was that the left usually turns a blind eye to this. But the fact of the matter is, if the people in your country are insecure when those people are being brought into the country, meaning additional people from refugees, despite the original intention of doing the right thing, there's going to be a clash. Now, it doesn't have to be a clash. Some of that clash comes along with cultural stuff. Some of it comes along with slums that may have taken place because the governments didn't necessarily adequately prepare for the people who were coming into the country, because people were coming into the country in this kind of hectic, obtuse way. I guess my point is, the issues that are taking place in your countries may be different because you may be running into a certain carrying capacity issue with the number of people who are coming into your country. That is not the issue with the United States. We have 5 million people in this country. This is a massive country, and we can tolerate a hell of a lot more people if we were taking care of the people who are on the bottom rung of the ladder. You have a lot of people who are animated about the immigrant thing and have never even seen a goddamn immigrant. So I think it may be different from the standpoint of Sweden and Hungary, which are smaller countries, versus the United States. But does the right wing utilize it in similar ways? Yes. Yes. I hope that makes sense. All right. I'm going to end this. Blacks don't need jobs. We're winning under Trump. You didn't know that unemployment is at record lows. Unemployment may be at record lows, but so are your wages. If you're employed but you're working 2 jobs, is it really quality of life? The whole point in having the job is not the job, believe it or not. The whole point in having the job is to be able to take care of yourself so you can have a life. The job is just a proxy for you to have a life. If you're spending your entire life working that job, then the job becomes sort of a meaningless endeavor. Your life is essentially the job. which is not supposed to be. If your country has gotten to the point where people are working these gig economy positions and they're working the gig economy so often that they can't necessarily have a life, then what is the value of that? Like, what is the happiness index of your country if a large segment of that country is broke? Which it is. So it's like, come on. Darius Adams, it was a joke, Jamal. Okay, fair enough. But there are some people who don't think that's a joke. Could you please dance like Alexandria Cortez for 2 seconds? Oh, that's funny. Cringe Sniper, could you please dance like Alexandria Cortez for 2 seconds? I can't dance like that, man. I don't even think I can twirl like that in my chair. Like, yeah, I can't. You fuck around and break something. That's funny, though. That's funny. That's hilarious. Open borders will help with wage negotiations. No, it's not. I don't have this belief in open borders. I mean, I don't know what of this argument that I'm making here that gives you this idea that I believe in open borders. I don't have this belief that you need to build a wall, especially when the immigration numbers are going down or illegal border crossings are going down. I don't have this belief that you shut the government down over trying to build this pointless wall that is purely just a political stunt. And even if I could, to some degree, say, okay, yes, you should have, border security, or at the very least, that could be a negotiation point. This is nonsense. I mean, what's taking place here is utter nonsense. I'm shocked by Ocasio-Cortez is dancing. Impeach her. She's a person. Yes, she dances, and I'm pretty sure she uses the bathroom, and I'm pretty sure she wipes herself when she uses the bathroom. I'm pretty sure she does a whole ton of things. Yes, she's dancing. So what? Jamal is losing his mind. I think I'm going to call PETA for him electing his dogs for too many weeks. The dogs weren't elected. So she's smoking hot. She is smoking hot, yes. And I am perfectly okay with seeing her dance. She can dance as often as she wants. There's another one that I like. The new one who screamed out that the Democratic Party is going to impeach the motherfucker. For some reason, that is hot to me. And I can't place why. I don't know why. I love it. That's such a badass thing. Like, that was more jarring to me than dancing, if I'm being honest. It's so unexpected for a political person to say something like that. We're going to impeach the motherfucker. And then to double down on it, it's like, whoa, what are you impeaching him on? Yeah, that's her. Rashida Tlaib. She's Muslim, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's hardcore, man. You have a weird fetish, Jamal. Yes, I do. That's okay, I own it. I'll own it. I like strong women, man. I don't know what it is. I like strong women. And it is a strong thing to say we're going to impeach the motherfucker. And I mean, yeah, she's also attractive. Ocasio-Cortez is Lorena Bobbitt. She does not. Trump is our president. I have a problem calling him pet names. Oh, you mean like the motherfucker? Motherfucker's pet name. Yeah, that's hardcore, man. She voted for Pago. It's grandstanding. Well, only 3 people voted against Pago. I don't know. Look, I don't have a massive expectation. Jamal asks how they're going to pay for the wall. I am curious about that myself, Rob. How are they going to pay for the wall? That's what I'm curious about. Rob, they said Mexico's going to pay for it. That's the last I heard. I heard Mexico's going to pay for it. I love the Mexican president saying we're not going to pay for that fucking wall. Him dropping that F-bomb also. It's like Trump just brings it out of him. Patrick Seguin, establish martial law, take your guns away, activate FEMA camps, and start indiscriminately murdering you. You've never been able to escape the horror of what is about to unfold. But having guns is not going to protect you from that either. I mean, the government has potbelly helicopters or whatever those things are called. Police departments have tanks. If you're talking about a overt fascistic takeover because of a push for somebody like Sanders or a push for somebody from the left, I don't know. I don't think I'm believing in the FEMA camp stuff though. We're a fiat currency and we print money. Yes, we do. Yeah, but I think their thing is, how are you going to pay for the wall? I think that's their point. How are you going to pay for the wall? How are you going to pay for the wall? Adrian Rhodes. What's happening, Adrian? Jamal, take a look at these bullet points. Okay, what bullet points? What am I looking at? What am I looking at? Why are we resisting Trump when the left is so bad? Well, it's not we resisting Trump in this case. It's the Democratic Party that's resisting Trump on the wall. We don't necessarily have a dog in this hunt. At least I don't have a dog in this hunt. I look at this from the outskirts and say, I don't want him to build that wall. It has nothing to do with the Democratic Party. I just don't want him to build a wall. If that makes sense. Same way we pay for tax cuts. Yeah, but in this case, this is one of those appropriation things. And in this case, you need a certain number of Democrats to say, yes, we would agree with you in order to pay for the wall. Right now, the Democrats have the House. The Democrats in the House are not going to pay for that wall. So the question becomes, how does the president pay for the wall when Congress is not going to appropriate the funding for that wall? That's what Rob's asking. That's what Rob is asking. I say define the southern border. It satisfies people. Bernie Tulsi 2020. Trudy Tulsi was talking about running. Like, she's talking about running. And at this point, I don't know what Sanders is. Sanders hasn't necessarily declared whether or not he's running yet, even though Richard Wolff has said he will. Let's see, what is this? What happened when a Trump supporter challenged me about the border wall? Uh-oh. Walls don't work. Most illegal immigrants are overstayers. Walls have little impact on drugs being bordered to the U.S. It's environmentally impractical. Not to mention, they would have to take land from people in order to make that work. Meaning, for Trump to get the wall that he's talking about, land would have to be taken for the people who live in that eminent domain. Yeah. Border Patrol agents don't like concrete. Yeah, they don't. But they already said that it wasn't going to be a concrete wall. It was going to be a fence, even though Trump keeps calling it a wall. Big, beautiful walls. It's going to be a fence. They need to be able to see between the chains. Border Patrol agents said walls are meaningless without agents and technology to back them up. Yes. Where walls have been built, there's been no discernible impact on the influx of illegal aliens. Yes, there's that. Unintended consequence of the wall is that it blocks farm workers from exiting when their invaluable season workers are. Meaning, the illegal immigrants who come to the country, they do labor that essentially American workers aren't doing. When that season is up, they go back. They're making a point that a wall prevents them from going back into the country. Trump's $5 billion is laughable, dropping the bucket for what will actually be needed. That's true, but Trump, the number is just, it's not a real number. The number is just, like, you must understand, all of this is to some degree political grandstanding. So 5 billion, 10 billion, the number is less important than him getting money for the wall, for him to say, I won, look at this money that I got for the wall. According to MIT engineers, the wall will cost $31 billion. Jesus Christ. In other words, the facts show that the wall don't work and create even bigger. Adrian, I showed the chart when I first started this on illegal immigration going down. And I even showed the fact check thing going through the stuff that Donald Trump was saying in order to make this point that this is nonsense. Like, this is nonsense. Not to mention the pain that is causing hundreds of thousands of people while Donald Trump grandstands on this particular point. So, Bob, I think you're wrong on this one, Bob. Most of the wall will be built in California airport. What? Bob, I think you're wrong on this one, man. There are real people who are being hurt by this. So let's be very clear. And the real people who are being hurt by this are just people just like you and me. Get up, do their jobs, and go about their way and just trying to live their life. And something that's beyond them, that for the most part is just an issue of politics, where all of the incentives from the standpoint of politics go towards Trump not wanting to look like an asshole because he's made such a political deal out of this, and Democratic Party having no reason to support him in trying to achieve his political objective. You have a recipe for an intractable issue. So, Rubel Rogmule, I may be pronouncing that wrong. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. SEK. I don't know what SEK stands for. I don't know what SEK stands for. All right. I'll end this here. No, Nancy Pelosi don't care. Look, neither one of them care. I was talking to one of the women who was one of my nurses, and again, she's not political, and she looked at this and she was like, "I thought he was supposed to be there to help the Americans," and I'm looking at her like, "Oh God, why you can't be this naive?" But from her standpoint, she gets up in the morning, she goes to work, she takes care of her dad or her mom or whatever, and she rinses and repeats. And the paycheck that she gets and everything else all go towards making sure that her life is intact, the life that she has. Looking at political leaders, she looks at them, and I think many people look at them and say, in the same way that I'm doing my job, those people need to go and do their jobs. But their jobs is somewhat different than the job that you're doing. The job that you're doing is somewhat manual, where point A to point B to point C, and some other process comes out that creates something that somebody can sell, or somebody can use. In the political space, it doesn't work that way. I mean, you're trying to get people who are motivated by things that you don't necessarily see, who tells you things that are not necessarily true, in order to get things that you don't necessarily want. And fact of the matter is, are somewhat removed from the typical things of everyday life. The overwhelming majority of the people who are in Congress are millionaires. Some tens of millions or hundreds of millions. Same thing when you get to media. The majority of the people who are in media are millionaires. They're in a different class. And that different class interacts and looks at the world in a particular way. I mean, what does your world look like when you know that you're never going to go hungry, that there's never going to be a situation where you're going to be, as long as the system itself remains intact, that you're never going to go without, that you're not going to be vulnerable, that your education is paid for, that you don't have these bills lingering over your head, that you don't have this healthcare bill lingering over. Like, your life is fundamentally different when you don't have those things pulling and tugging on you at every particular waking minute. The decisions that you make in situations like that, when you are somewhat far removed from the consequences of your actions, will be different and may come across as being heartless, or may come across as being even unfathomable by people who are not in that position of invulnerability, at least in the model itself. I guess my point is, they're in a different class, and in that different class, how they relate to this stuff is different, because they're not affected by it. They're not affected by it. Like, there's not a situation where Nancy Pelosi is going to go without eating. Nancy Pelosi is like $100 million in the bank. She will be okay. Wall Street Chuck, meaning Chuck Schumer, same thing. He will be okay, regardless of whether the government shuts down for a week or a month or 2 months. They will be okay. They're far removed from the things that are adversely affecting them. Same thing with Donald Trump. His dad gave him a ton of money, and he lost a ton of money through the course of his life. But at the end of the day, he was always going to be bailed out. Regardless of him going bankrupt so many times, essentially failing one thing after the next in life, he was always going to be okay. The overwhelming majority of Americans don't live in a situation like that, don't even know what a situation like that is. We could work together collectively to get rid of some of that vulnerability, meaning education, for example, to not have $50,000 on the backs of kids in this kind of exploitative relationship of, you want a better life, you want some level of access to a better future, pay me all of this money, pay me. You're talking to a kid who's 16, 17 years old who looks at that as a pathway, in which case the person who's sitting on top can extort a certain degree of money out of them based on their future. Now, in other countries, they look at that and say that's horrendous, because it is horrendous. You should want kids to go to school. It is a benefit to the country, to the society, for kids in that society, in that country, to go to school, to get an education, to proliferate their studies and access to knowledge. That should be something that you pay for even, not charge for, there's a difference in those things. Same thing with healthcare. The country as itself, as a country evolves, it should evolve in certain ways where it acknowledges and recognizes that there is a link between us, that I could have been you in the same way that you could have been me, depending upon just the luck of lottery or the luck of birth. In which case, maybe we should start looking after one another and to cut down on some of these vulnerabilities. One of those vulnerabilities, or two of those, could be healthcare and education. Those are straightforward. You want to do something about climate change? Let's start adding infrastructure into public access, public transport. Have, like if you look at somewhere like Germany or Warsaw, the public transportation is amazing. You come to Richmond, Virginia, not so much. You have a bus, and they just now created a bus lane. But you can cut down on the number of cars on the streets with a better public transportation system. I wouldn't have a car if I lived in somewhere like Poland, or I lived in somewhere like, somewhere with like Copenhagen or something like that. You wouldn't need it. You wouldn't need it. Change this world, man. You can change this world. All right. I'm going to end this. The entire Congress and Senate should be without pay until the police decides to drop the bill. Yes, agreed. Trina be fine. Agreed. Completely agree. He's the phantom of many topics because he hasn't brought any substance to a single one yet. I love that. That's funny. Tom Mott. Coward is ending. What? Phantom is hilarious at his old age. He's crying on the internet. What? I'm running. I have an accounting degree, okay? I don't know what that has to do with the price of tea in China. Most poor blacks weigh 300 pounds, Neil Carter style. I don't know if that's true either. And seeing that you started off saying that most blacks want the wall, I'm very skeptical of your stats. Sanders already has his knee. Oh God, Bob. Sanders already has his knee pads picked out for 2020. They're in his Amazon. Oh, that's wrong. Oh, you bastard. That's wrong. That's wrong. Man, if Bernie Sanders turned around and gets cheated again and supports like Kamala Harris, I'm done, man. I'm gonna change this channel to a Star Trek channel, and just talk about Picard and Data all day. Like, that's where I'm gonna be. That's where I'm gonna be. All right, I'm gonna end this. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all. I'll be back in probably about 15-20 minutes. I need to take the dogs out, make sure they're okay. But I'll be back. I have a list of shows for today, so thanks all.